Welcome to Six Count. I'm your host, Sarah Wild, bringing you the voices and stories of jazz from Durham, North Carolina.
I cried at the thought I was foolish and proud and let you say goodbye. Then one day, from my infinite sadness you came and brought me love again. Now
Frankie, thank you so much for joining Six Count today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
So I was first exposed to your music at the Sharp 9 Gallery in Durham, and I'm curious if you remember your first performance there ever.
Yeah, I do remember. It was, quite some years ago. I think they say now that they're in their 10th year. So it was probably at the very beginning or the ninth or the second year of their existence.
Oh, wow.
And so it was, just a beautiful place. I had been there to hear a few things, and it was just very interesting to get a chance to perform in a place like that had a wonderful sound system and everything. It didn't have quite the momentum as far as people knowing about it then. So it was, kind of a low-key performance for me as far as attendance and things. But still, it was great to have that type of venue right here, so close to me, so.
We are so lucky to have Sharp 9, and I think there's some benefits and cons to a packed house or to a more intimate audience, because I imagine that sometimes if it's a small enough group, then you really feel like you're connecting with them.
Yeah, I think just because of the atmosphere in that club, either way, you're going to feel like you're connecting. It just brings that sort of feeling. And that's why so many people now are going there for all types of artists, and we're just lucky.
And that's certainly one of your gifts in connecting with the audience and making people feel like you're almost just singing to them, which I appreciate. Now, I know you've been in Durham since at least the 70s, I believe, but you grew up in Concord, North Carolina. What would you say informed your interest in jazz from your earliest memory?
It was mainly through my oldest sister. She was a member of the Columbia Music Club, so she would get monthly albums, and that's how I discovered all these wonderful musicians, Thelonious Monk and Nina Simone, Nancy Wilson, everybody, and if it hadn't been for her, I probably wouldn't have known anything about that type of music.
Yeah. At least with my sisters, I know we steal each other's clothes, but it would have been cool to steal each other's jazz records as well. And how old were you when you decided to take jazz seriously?
I wasn't thinking about doing music at all, ever, until 28 or 29, when I moved to Durham and met these transplants from Baltimore, Yusuf Salim, that probably some people maybe that you've interviewed have known about him, and Bus Brown. They were both people from Baltimore who Yusuf moved down here, I want to say in the 60s, but I didn't meet him until the late 70s. Moved down to get away from the drug-infested life he was leading in Baltimore. And, he had some connections with people down here and had gotten out of the drug scene and was into Islam, and he moved down here, and I don't know how Salam came into existence, but a young Caucasian Duke graduate became friends with him, and they opened this cultural center called Salam Cultural Center. It had a little bit of food, bean burgers and hummus and stuff. But the big thing was to have jazz, probably just on the weekends, as far as the music was concerned. And so local people flocked there, and that's when I moved to Durham in '78. I just magically found that place and fell in love with it. Just as a listener, I had no thoughts about doing any music, at that time. But just through happenstance, coincidence, I kind of got pushed into doing some singing or non-singing on a stage there because of Bus Brown. And I think he just took the opportunity to use me as a project. I guess he heard something that he felt like could be developed. And that's what he did. He worked with me for many years, helping me develop an ear and a feeling for expression of connecting, lyrics with people.
Yeah. I want to hear more about both Bus and Yusuf, but I was interested by the Baltimore connections because it sounded like around the time when Yusuf came, there was a sort of faltering in the scene in Baltimore that I was reading about, and that might have explained some of it. But I also saw that Bus in particular was friends with Billie Holiday, who is in Baltimore. So is there a story or connection between Baltimore and Durham?
I think it was more of a coincidence than any kind of, because there were people who were from Baltimore who came down, and Brother Kenneth Muhammad had evolved from a very questionable lifestyle in Baltimore and, developed into the Muslim religion, culture, and lifestyle. And he brought Yusuf down to help him to get out of the cycle of, drugs. And Yusuf was trying to get out of it. And what better way was to just completely divorce yourself from what he had grown up in,
Yeah.
And so again, this was all established by the time I met Yusuf. So I don't know exactly how Salam came into being, but it was there, and I was glad.
And is it still around? I know Yusuf passed in 2008.
Yeah, right. And Bus passed in 2007. So Bus was older than Yusuf. Bus was born in 1907, and he died in 2007. Okay. So he was he died at 99 and a half.
Oh, wow.
So Bus was the elder gentleman.
Okay.
And Yusuf brought him down just to, at one point, WUNC was doing these TV programs called Yusuf and Friends, and he was featuring local artists, and it was a great little set of programs that you got to see these people in action performing in various areas and venues, and so but Yusuf had Bus come down and do one of those talking about his connection with Billie Holiday.
Oh, okay.
And so that's, how Bus got down here, and just for a visit, but then he ended up coming back and staying, for about 10 or 11 years or so.
Well, I'm so glad that Yusuf was able to really flourish here, it seems, just based off the cultural center and the WUNC show and all of the different initiatives that he started around here. And as you referred to, so many people in the jazz scene still talk about him and the impact he left. So what a turnaround from perhaps where he was just a few years prior to coming here.
Right. I would say that he, helped more musicians than anybody in the area, at least of my generation, and some and many younger ones too, who people who have now graduated from NC Central, but they're at least a good 15 or 20 years younger than I am. But they had got to experience Yusuf, and many of them have said that how much they learned from him, and they're passing that on to other musicians. So.
Well, it's so wonderful to hear about their lives, so thank you for sharing about that. Is there anything else you'd want to share of how either of them influenced your voice that's become the Frankie sound, or anything else that you want to share that you learned from them?
That they let you know that there was no particular way to be. You just had to be yourself. You might listen to all kind of people and compare yourself because you admire what they're doing, but they just let you helped me to realize that what I am is valuable too. What I can bring as far as my interpretation, my sound, and so they they gave a lot of people confidence to pursue something that, in my case, something I hadn't even thought about at all. So you can imagine people who came in wanting to do this kind of music, whatever the instrumentation is, they were super vitamins for everybody.
So, jazz has always seemed like a special club or family to me, where people are truly trying to mentor each other and bring them up and be supportive when it's in a healthy sort of scene, which it seems like Durham has been that for many.
Yes, indeed.
And you've been associated with Carmen McRae, Shirley Horn, Sarah Vaughan, Abbey Lincoln, and Betty Carter. What are your reactions to some of those? Are they, in fact, influences for you, or who else is not in the mix that would be helpful to know? But also, you just were talking about finding your own unique voice and not comparing yourself to others. So to whatever extent those list of names are helpful in defining your voice.
Well, I love everybody you mentioned. And, I don't know any vocalist who hasn't, been on the, gotten their inspiration from others. And of course we're gonna mimic and do, that's what jazz is, or what your love for the music is, because I do and very much love Carmen McRae and Shirley Horn. I don't know, I think you said her name too, but anyway, they're a few of my favorites, as well as Ella and everybody, and Miles Davis and other trumpet players that and instrumentalists in general, John Coltrane, everybody. You just, because it was the instrumentalists that I first heard more than I did vocalists.
How come?
Well, I mean, because those were the records my sister would buy. And that's why I didn't know any of them, Thelonious Monk. So I mainly was hearing horns initially, and then I got Nina Simone. She ordered one of those, and I fell in love with that. And my dad once came home. The grocery stores used to have albums in them. Can you imagine
that's
that?
Lucky.
I mean, there would just be, it would almost be like a discards or something, you know what I mean?
Oh.
You know, but he came home with an album by Ernestine Anderson. And I want to say that might have been the first vocal album that I listened to. It's hard for me to remember, but I just remember him giving me this album. And neither one of us was thinking about me ever doing any singing. I was probably like 13 or 14. And it was called Hot Cargo, you know. Okay. And I just, and Ernestine, that was just a great album. And, you know, so all of those ingredients were just synthesizing in me until around the age of 28, you know. And then, you know, because of, like I said, that chance encounter, you know, with Salam Cultural Center and these wonderful people.
Yeah. To me, in hearing about your life so far, it seems like these different events may have seemed coincidental, but there is such a design that I see.
I guess if I were internationally known now, then I would say it was some, you know, plan. But because, you know, it's pretty much a hobby for me. So it seems more coincidental because it wasn't like I took that and ran with it and, you know, went all over the country or the world. You know, I just am quite pleased to do what I'm doing with it, and I just love and appreciate the gift that they gave me, you know. So in my old age, I have something to do with myself, you know, for fun.
And was touring nationally, internationally, was that a goal, or has it been the desire to serve the local community with your gift?
Yeah, it was not at all a goal, and is not a goal to do, you know, touring. Like I say, it's just something I enjoy, and I'm happy that they gave me that the opportunity and the gift. Now it's a gift that they gave me.
At your performance that I attended with my parents who were in town, you shared so many different stories in between the songs that had to do with the pandemic. And I remember chatting with my parents afterwards, and we just felt like it was so cathartic for us, almost like COVID therapy. And so I was wondering if music for you has also been like therapy.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I definitely, because I was sequestered, and recently retired, that combination, you know, definitely made me happy to have my piano and music and, you know, things to preoccupy and occupy myself with, you know, during that time. And so it was definitely cathartic for music and meditation. TM, transcendental meditation and music were my favorite things.
Yes. Well, as just a listener, I'm not musically talented myself. It's always been very therapeutic for me. In 2007, you released your first album, Mad About the Words, and it was through an emerging artist grant through the Durham Arts Council. And I was reading in an older Indie Week article that the album name referred to restaurant managers and the frustration of not being booked as a vocalist, as you saw those same establishments hiring more instrumental musicians. Can you share more about that?
Yeah, that's, I guess that's one of the reasons why I think all the vocalists love Sharp 9, because there's no forks and knives and spoons and and be quiet and turn your phone off and you're here to listen, you know. So that is back in 2007 and, you know, and beyond, that was not the case, you know, when most of the places that vocalists did things were restaurants, and nobody. You were lucky if people seemed to be listening, because and most owners would say, well, instrumentals, there's no interference, there's just the music, and no, your words aren't going to be getting in the way of other people's conversations. I don't know that a bunch of people would say that to me directly, as far as saying we don't want any vocalists, but
that was sort of the message.
Yeah, it was pretty much more, and even myself as a customer, sometimes if I went someplace and I was looking forward to having a conversation with somebody, I wouldn't necessarily want the interaction of at least some loud singing, Yeah. But and so then you got to be soft, and then the next thing you know, nobody's can hear you at all,
Yeah.
And so but there weren't, all the venues weren't quite so distracted by singers. I mean, I did work in restaurants, and but it's still, like I say, there's no match for Sharp 9 as far as for vocalists, or, for any musician, but especially singers.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses have been more understandably risk averse, but it seems like live jazz is seen as a luxury for when times are good, not as the driver to bring in customers, which to me, I wish those were flipped.
Right.
And you can hear my Shih Tzu a little bit for listeners who may be hearing some dog sounds.
She's agreeing.
Yes. What's been your perception of the post-pandemic, if we can say that now, scene, and what direction you might see it headed, or where do you hope to see it headed?
Well, I think even prior to the pandemic, many places, music was always just a fringe benefit, tack on. If we, if times are good, then we've got this superfluous funds for this, but but that music will be the first to go too when if things aren't flourishing, and so I don't know that that's gonna ever change, especially at least for a while, especially because people are establishing themselves after the pandemic, and I can't even begin to imagine what a restaurant owner is dealing with, as far as everything from supply and getting the food that they need or used to have, and let alone worrying about whether the pandemic stays low as far as incidences, or they're probably looking at that like the weather, because that's going to affect who's coming out and who's doing what, and so I just don't know anything about what we might be seeing, but I'm hopeful that things will continue to improve, and if they do, then I'm sure and the economy is better, so that people have money that they want to come out and eat and see some music. I mean, potentially if there's music going on in those venues, but it's a very scary time still, so. And
there is a lot of pockets in Durham that do create hope and excitement. There's the Tuesday evening jazz jam at Kingfisher, which I recently went to, and was neat to see so much of the scene there. And then at Bond Brothers East Side with Thrio, which has their jam session there. But it sounds like from the people I've spoken to that we still have a ways to go in what you've shared today. Do you have any advice for musicians in how they should pitch establishments from when you were doing that on a really frequent basis? I imagine it sometimes gets discouraging if you don't hear back, and where do you get the energy to continue finding new places to go or following up with people? For a younger musician who might have just moved to the area or just might be getting into this as you did when you were 28 or 29, what might you share with them?
Mainly just to get out more, get out and look for opportunities that may, if you're visiting places that look like they could be a good area for doing some music, you could approach them. Especially, it's good if you've got a product to lead them or a website to direct them toward. Probably if you have the product, that's even better, because you could give somebody a card and they would go thanks, and
out the window.
And you never know, but having some sort of piece of what you're proposing to do is helpful. But it's I didn't do a whole lot of searching for places, so I guess part of it was there were places that were doing music, and I'd go to those places and maybe talk just to a manager, see if they were interested in having some live music. So, but we're talking about a while back, so I don't know what people would, especially right now, what somebody would do, but they probably are out a lot doing jam sessions and making connections with other musicians, and that is always very good too. And then you can from there potentially they may ask you to do something. They may some guitar player. I remember doing things with Scott Sawyer 100 years ago. 100 for me, only 30 for him or something. But so he was a very eager musician, and he's a wonderful player. But he might say, "Hey, I'm doing a jam session over here. I'm doing something. Why don't you come and do a few?" So it's if you know people that are that you feel amenable to what they're doing and feel like you could, maybe blend with them. Okay, that's a connection to make with like-minded people. You know, and I had energy then. I didn't mind trying to drive somewhere and find something. I don't feel like that now. The young people, that's what they've got going for them, youth, and energy, and so I'm pretty sure they'll come up with what they need to come up with to promote themselves and get opportunities.
Well, it's been a pleasure to have you here this afternoon, and thank you for coming over. Hope that the next performances that you have go really well.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Did you say I've got a lot to learn? Well, don't think I'm trying not to learn, since this is the perfect spot to learn. Teach me tonight, starting with the ABC of it, right down to the XYZ of it. Help me solve the mystery of it. Teach me tonight.
Thank you for listening to 6 Count. I'm Zara Wild. You can let us know what you thought of the episode or recommend a guest by emailing us at 6countpodcast@gmail.com or by finding us on Twitter or Instagram at 6countpodcast. If you'd like to support our work in telling the story of jazz in Durham, you can make a gift to the show by following the link in our episode description. Thanks for listening.